What is the most ridiculous ducked up lie your parents told you? My parents told me we had to leave the zoo because they let the animals out at closing time. My dad once told me if I didn't say a single word the whole way home, he'd take me to Arby's. In the driveway, I came to the realization that we couldn't go to Arby's as we were home. We're not going, are we? Him, well, you talked just now, so guess not. Not too ducked up, but ridiculous. When I was little, my mom told me if I didn't finish my dinner my stomach would get very hungry and come up and eat my brain. A few nights later I woke her up at midnight crying because my stomach growled and I needed a second dinner or it would eat my brain. When I was a kid my father told me about the can. He said it contained a family secret of incredible value and that when I turned 18 I could see it. On my 18th birthday I asked my father about the can. He said the duck is the can. And after I reminded him of it, he burst out laughing, saying that he was ducking with me. For almost a decade I believed that I would be privy to some cosmic secret on my 18th birthday. Turns out I'm just very impressionable. My dad got fed up of watching Barney the dinosaur when I was a kid. And one day, when I asked to watch it, he said, "You can't." Why? Because Barney died. I never did watch Barney again. I lived with my grandma until I was 16. My mom is currently telling me that never happened and she never left me with grandma. I guess I imagined my entire childhood. Editing to add, lived with doesn't do it justice. Grandma raised me. I alternated weekends between my mom and dad, but I'm sure her 4 days a month are made up too. That my siblings and I had a sister named Alice. Apparently she wouldn't stop talking in the car, so they dropped her off on the side of the road. Never spoke on road trips ever again. My dad died in a car accident a few years ago. Until this day my mom says that he is still on vacation. I don't know if it is a coping method for her, but I haven't said anything about it. Around the time Toy Story first came out, my dad drove an Infiniti and he told us that he could press a button and go to infinity and beyond to jump over other cars. He'd have us close our eyes and press the button and he'd speed up and pass the car in front of us while our eyes were closed. As a kid I watched UMBFOU Ned and thought he was magic. It's actually a nice memory compared to the other ones on here, lol. That if I didn't brush my teeth, tiny teeth goblins would sneak into my room at night and pull out my teeth while I slept. I was genuinely afraid of the teeth goblins. That my eyes turn orange when I lie, so I covered my eyes when I lied, so my mom couldn't see them turn fking orange. We used to have a farm when I was a kid. My uncle gave me few hens he had, and I told my dad that I want them to have baby chicks and sell them. He told me we need to buy you a rooster for your hens. I said why? They lay eggs and they don't need to have a male around. He told me the eggs won't be fertile and will never hatch. But what can a rooster do to make it hatch? He picks the back of their necks. Well, I can do that with a needle every day. And then he farts in their butts. The worst part one remember is me running to my mom after we went home to tell her about my recent discovery. That it's illegal to turn the light on in the car while driving. A lot of these are sad, so here's a silly nice one. My birthday is the 11th of July. The gas station 7-Eleven gives away free slushes on 7-Eleven. At 7, 8, 9 years old my parents just told me that the 7-Eleven wanted to celebrate my birthday by giving me free slushes and I did not question it. I thought the gas station just really liked me. Well, shit, how much time do you have? These are not in any particular order. 1. Any food eaten before the prayer is over is lethal poison and will kill you. I was physically restrained painfully to prevent me from testing this obvious lie. 2. I do not have rights until I turn 18. 3. Because we caught you looking up pictures of nude women online. Now you're going to burn in heck forever and we can't be together in the afterlife. This is your fault. For the reason your mother and I wear this special underwear is that it protects us. There are people who survive fires and stabbings because of this underwear. 5. If you are in an accident and you have someone else in the car, that person's parents will sue us and we will literally lose everything and be homeless. Therefore you are forbidden to have passengers in your car. 6. The reason there are only right-wing radio hosts on the air is because the liberal ones are run off for being idiots. While they never outright said sex is illegal, their actions led me to believe it was for most of my childhood. Blocking my view in a movie or show if anything more than a light peck occurred, along with scenes containing violence, really kindled the concept in my mind that it was against the law. I don't talk to my parents much. Edit just because a lot of people are seeing this. A couple of things. Yes, I was raised Mormon and left pretty much as soon as I could. At 18, I realized that legally parents can decide what religion their children can be and basically force them to go to church. I disagree with it, but at that age about 13 I didn't know that and just wanted to find any reason not to sit in church for 3 hours every Sunday. Had a somewhat abusive father growing up. Only bone I ever broke was his handiwork. Both he and my mother insist to this day that it never happened. That I broke my foot in a marching band accident must have just slipped my mind. Wasn't surprised when the term gaslighting became more prevalent in society. When I was younger I learned that mushrooms were a fungus and refused to eat them. My dad made me some soup with mushrooms in it and I threw a fit about eating it. So he inspected the bowl and told me they were whale toes. Apparently I was old enough to know that mushrooms were a fungus, but not old enough to know that whales didn't have feet. If I acted up my mom would say she was sending me to the hospital to be put down. It really ducked me up. She even drove a sobbing puking me to the hospital to be put down one day. She said she would give me a second chance and didn't take me in. A lot more tame than the other ones here, but my mum once told me not to sleep on my left cos. That causes pressure on your heart. Not sure how true that was, but I was nervous for years whenever I had to sleep on my left side. Kinda a funny one. I grew up on a farm with cattle, and we had 2 dogs. I had really bad allergies growing up, and was allergic to everything with a fur coat, but I still hugged our dogs, and kept getting sick over it. So to prevent from hugging or playing with our dogs my mom told me that by doing so would make them want to chase cows, and getting our cows worked up was a no-no. So I stopped hugging with the dogs in order to make them stop chasing cows. Funny thing is that now, when I bring that up my mom doesn't even remember telling me that. When my dad wanted me to stop bothering him, he would send me on aimless errands. Go to the shed and get me the chain stretcher. I'd be looking for hours. I went off to college. My folks said they gave my pet away. I found out years later they had taken it to the vet and put her down. She was healthy and only 6 years old. They told me kids came from a government agency called the CAA Child Assignment Agency and that they could exchange me whenever they want if I ever misbehaved. They told me they were eyeing a well-behaved little girl but hadn't decided yet. They used it against me for years. My mom has severe bipolar disorder. She once told me she would never yell at me again after a huge meltdown when I was very young, like 5 or 6. I thought of that every time she ever yelled after that my whole life, which was at least every other day. It's just one of those things from childhood that always stuck with me. Gaslighting. About obviously wrong or easily disputable things. Like, I hated the babysitter I had from age 3 to 4. She was a bitch who favored boys and didn't much like me either. I was an easygoing kid, but I hated her. My mother insisted all the ways through college that I loved this woman. We'd go back to visit my hometown, and she'd force me to skip seeing my friends to visit this lady. At 16, these visits would go something like, "Hi. Oh. It's you." And then she'd ignore me and talk to my mother while I stared at a wall and nodded politely until we could leave. My mother doubled down on this every time I disagreed until one visit back to the church we used to attend, social center of small towns. This lady saw my mother coming and began the conversation with, "Wasn't it funny how much your daughter and I always hated each other? I only watch little boys these days. Can't stand girls." My mom briefly attempted to convince both of us that we shared fond memories, but by that point we were approaching 20 years of mutual dislike. It was a bit absurd. It's not that ducked up, but it's kind of a revenge story. When I was very young, my parents told me I couldn't get carbonated soft drinks cause they said it was bad for me and I could die. Mind you, I was an hyperactive kid at the time. At one point I got a genius idea. I lived with my mother and my father would pick me up every weekends. My plan was Friday evening. When my father would pick me up, I would tell him Mom gave me Coca-Cola cause she said it's okay, you're going to your father's anyway. And at this moment my father accepted the fake challenge I have given him. The next Sunday evening my father gave me like a 1L of 7-Up just before dropping me off. So I was pretty excited. My mother asked me like, "What's up with you?" And I told her pretty much the same thing. Dad gave me 7-Up cause he said it's okay, you're going to your mother afterward anyway. And then my mom took on the challenge too. They never spoke about it out loud, it was kind of a war, and I was the instruments. What they didn't know was that I was the evil mind behind it all. So all in all, I got my revenge. I got carbonated soft drinks and they never learned the truth until I told them years later. Parents always claimed we were a poor family growing up, so didn't have money for sport clubs, hobbies or expensive school trips. Got older and realized it was due to the amount of money they would spend on weed. They still don't see it as an issue to this day. Not really messed up, but I was told that watermelon seeds would grow inside me and sprout out of my head if I swallowed them. Needless to say, I cried until I threw up when I accidentally swallowed watermelon seeds. My dad told me I was lucky because no one would ever want me for my looks, crazy damaging, and also led to a lot of confusion in my teenage young adult years when I'd get aggressively hit on by men. Why? Cause actually I'm pretty good looking, I guess. He just decided to tell me otherwise because I resemble his ex-wife, my mother. My uncle had me terrified to go outside barefoot for years. Apparently if you go outside barefoot the toe gophers will come and eat your toes. I hated wearing shoes as a kid. Still hate it as an adult. The crust of the bread is the most nutritious part. I was just really smart and deserved to be in the gifted kids program. Really, I was just dealing with ADHD, and I'm not that smart. As an adult related to childhood, you don't have ADHD. You did fine in school. You were just like me when I was little. My mother refuses to see a therapist, psychiatrist because she thinks they just tell you what you want to hear. I was diagnosed with ADHD and bipolar at age 29. My life could have been a lot better if she had gotten me the help I needed when I first started having problems, but I was told I was just too smart and unique. I was all of maybe 9 years old, but I was responsible for getting my younger sister up, ready and out the door for school in the morning, maybe once a month. In a rush I would forget to set the alarm. Apparently this bothered my mom enough that she unexpectedly picked me up from school early one day. She told me that because I had forgotten to lock the door, the house had been robbed and all of our TVs and game systems had been stolen. She led me into my room, which for some reason was the only room in the house that had been trashed. She went on and on about how it was entirely my fault. I deserved this. How I was going to be working to pay off every stolen thing. After a few hours she let up that it was all just a setup to teach me not to forget set the alarm. She hid the electronics and trashed a 9-year-old's room to make a point. Anyways, I have severe general anxiety now. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,